Yes. Hello. Please have a seat. Please. Both of you, please have a seat. Normally, I don't take new clients. However, both of you, well, I received a call from Dr. Kavanaugh that apparently both of you were not happy with his services and that you would prefer someone a bit older, a bit more experienced with mixed species couples. Is that correct? Yes. Yes. Well, my name is Dr. Smith. Yes, my name is Dr. Smith, and I've been practicing interspecies marriage counseling since about 5 years after it became clear that human beings weren't the only species, well, the only truly intelligent species on Earth. Yes, 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 only 5 years after what everyone refers to as the event. So, since that was about 30 years ago, obviously, I have 25 years of experience. Well, I hope I can help the two of you as well. Um, Here's what we're going to do. The two of you are going to take turns explaining to me what each of you feels are the biggest issues in the marriage. And while one of you is speaking, I would ask that the other one remain silent. And the person who is speaking, please do not ask questions nor address your spouse as you are mentioning what you feel is the most important issues in the marriage. Ma'am, let's begin with you. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, yes, I have encountered your kind before. Um, Plant-based shapeshifter, however, with defined gender, and you are obviously a female of your species, so please continue. Mm-hmm, 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 mm-hmm. Yes, I see. All right, sir. Um, it's your turn, and obviously you're a human male, so please, feel free, both of you, to express yourselves. Mm-hmm, 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 mm-hmm. Yes, I can see how that might be an issue, considering that your wife is plant-based, but looks like a human being, only with slightly green skin. Mm-hmm. Yes, please continue. Mm-hmm, 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 mm-hmm. All right, all right. I'm starting to see what the main issue is here. Um, Mrs. Edwards, now apparently you're upset because you cook for your husband. You're happy to cook for your husband. You keep a very clean house. You do the laundry. And your husband seems ungrateful. That's your main issue. And Mr. Edwards, your main issue is that your wife just doesn't trust you. Yes, yes. Now, Mrs. Edwards, so you claim that on more than one occasion, your husband simply refuses to eat the dishes that you cook. Now, what sort of things do you prepare for your husband? Mm-hmm. 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 Mrs. Edwards, I'm seeing a pattern here. Apparently, almost everything that you cook is meat-based. Hamburgers, obviously without lettuce, tomato, because those are plants. Well, yes, Mr. Edwards, technically a tomato is a fruit because it has seeds on the inside, but everyone considers it a plant. No one eats a tomato the way they would a fruit. No one puts slices of fruit outside of tomatoes on their burgers, things like that. People eat tomatoes as though a tomato is a vegetable. But yes, technically it is a fruit. Mrs. Edwards, so you've actually found your husband secretly throwing out the dishes you make. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, yes, I do understand that with your species, your taste buds work differently than that of human beings. So you think that your husband hates your cooking, but isn't man enough to admit it? Okay, okay. No, Mr. Edwards. No. Your wife is being honest. Please don't get upset. Now, Mr. Edwards, you think your wife is spying on you? Why do you say that? Mm-hmm. 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 Okay. Mm-hmm. 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 Well, Mr. Edwards, I have to be honest with you. What you are describing sounds like a police tracking tool. Yes, the long cylinder shaped item with the sticky end that you found on your car and you removed and you threw it away. Yes, that sounds like something that the police use. And they haven't paid you a visit. Okay, likely they will. But let's talk about your wife's cooking. Now, what exactly is the issue? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, Mr. Edwards, your wife is literally a plant-based species that can morph and transform into, well, pretty much any animal, including a human being. And her species, although plant-based, is the closest to human beings out of all of the supernatural species that were discovered approximately 30 years ago. So what's really going on, Mr. Edwards? Do you hate your wife's cooking? I mean, according to her, she's actually won several local and even statewide cooking awards, but you don't seem very happy. Why is that, Mr. Edwards? Mm-hmm. 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 Yes, Mrs. Edwards. Mm-hmm. Oh, I see. I see. Mr. Edwards, is that true? The last time your wife cooked for you, you ended up vomiting in the toilet? So your wife, being a plant-based species, mostly cooks meat dishes. Red meat, chicken, pork, even fish. Well, Mr. Edwards, I mean, a fish is a living, breathing animal. You cut it open, and that thing that it has attached to its bones, that's obviously meat. Mr. Edwards, I'm not here to debate religion with you. I don't know why Christians are allowed to eat meat on, well, not allowed to eat meat on Fridays, but are allowed to eat fish. It's a form of meat. So those are the types of dishes that your wife cooks for you. But she doesn't use any vegetables. Well, I mean, obviously, Mr. Edwards, your wife is plant-based. She's not going to use vegetables. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right. Yes, yes. No, Mrs. Edwards. That's not the problem. The problem is that your husband is being dishonest with you. I'm sorry, Mr. Edwards, but you really are. Let me ask you this. How long have you been a vegetarian? Mr. Edwards, please. There's no reason to be defensive. I mean, that's clearly the problem. Clearly. I mean, how often has it happened that a guy who loves hamburgers, steaks, meets a beautiful, attractive woman, goes out with her, and then finds out, oh, she's a vegetarian or she's a vegan. And he gives it maybe his best try, and he lies and says, yes, I'm one too, because he wants to get in her pants. And then what happens? Eventually, his body starts craving meat, so he sneaks out for a burger or a steak, and his girlfriend becomes distrustful. She catches him, and it turns into a problem. I mean, honestly, Mr. Edwards, you are a rare breed. You are a man who's a vegetarian. You can't stand meat. Problem is, Mrs. Edwards, he never told you, did he? And of course, the thought that your husband enjoys eating plants is horrifying to you. Mrs. Edwards, what can I say? I'm sure you do an excellent job of keeping the house clean. I'm sure you do an excellent job with the laundry. I'm sure that you do an excellent job in the bedroom keeping your husband happy And I mean, your cooking awards speak for themselves. A lot of men would be very happy to have a wife like you, especially one from your species who has a slightly different mentality than most human women do. Well, your species honors and respects and appreciates men. Ours really doesn't. Not really. Now, Mr. Edwards, it's true, isn't it? You're a vegetarian. That's why you can't stand your wife's cooking. That's why you've been throwing it out. And quite frankly, Mrs. Edwards, that's why you've become distrustful of your husband, isn't it? Did you hire a private investigator to tail your husband to track his movements? Yes, you did. And I'm sure that police tracker that ended up on his vehicle, well, a lot of private investigators used to be police detectives, especially the older ones, and they still have their police connections. They can get things that they need, such as police trackers and everything they need to track a vehicle. Your husband found the tracker. I suspect that's why the police force hasn't stopped by to collect it or to question him about the fact that he removed it from his vehicle. And apparently your husband is so paranoid that it caused him to be discreet, and the investigator you hired came up with nothing. I can definitely see the problem here. Mr. Edwards, your wife is horrified that you're a vegetarian, that you eat plants. I mean, I can see the sadness and the terror in her eyes. I mean, I seriously doubt your wife is afraid that one night you're going to attack her and devour her, put her remains on a dish and start eating. But at the same time, Mrs. Edwards, I can see the horrible sadness in your eyes. And the truth of your situation is very clear to you. I'm sorry, Mr. Edwards, but it's obvious that there's no way to save this marriage. The fact that even a little bit of beef broth in the past has caused you to get sick to your stomach makes it clear that your body has gotten used to a plant-based diet. And at this point in your life, considering how long you've been a vegetarian, I don't think there is a chance of you going back. But Mrs. Edwards, you've already realized that, haven't you? I'm sorry. I don't think a trial separation will help. I don't think it's going to work. You are a plant-based creature, and the idea that your husband is a vegetarian is horrifying to you. It's like a human woman finding out that her human male husband is a cannibal. No, I don't think it'll work. For the two of you, I'm going to recommend at least for now, a trial separation with realistically divorce on the horizon. I'm sorry. some things just cannot be worked out in couples therapy.